Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Off-Farm Income Podcast. Hey, thank you so much for joining us here on our YouTube channel. This is episode number 967. Well, I'll tell you what, today's interview, I don't know, if I had to pick a theme for today's interview, it's all about being bold and not being afraid to be bold and stand up for what you believe in, regardless of your age, regardless of your level of education. If you believe in something, put those words out there. You never know who's going to hear those words and how they might step in to help you. We're going to interview a young lady named Kayla Reed who did exactly that when she was in 8th grade, and it has led to some pretty significant achievements and helped determine what her career and her passion was. We're going to get that started for you right now. Kayla, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you for having me.
You bet. I am really looking forward to the conversation. You come with high praise, very, very high praise, and I'll get to that here in just a second, but I wanted to welcome you to the show. And we're airing this a couple weeks after Christmas, but you have a beautiful Christmas tree behind you, so Merry Christmas to you.
Thank you.
You bet. You bet. So let's do this. I got to tell you this note I got. So you've got a bunch of FFA advisors there at your chapter. Mr. Erdman, Terry Erdman, who's helped me out multiple times with interviews. He's been really, really good to me. He sent me this note. Now, he's helped me out with a bunch of interviews. This is the first time he sent me a note like this. So here's what he said. And this is about Kayla. She is the epitome of what we would hope every FFA member would do in their SAE program. She is a self-starter that has had a goal for many years to be a fisheries biologist or something related to this field, and is now into her first year of college in this program. What is also fantastic is that this is a non-traditional area, and Kayla made partnerships with our Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources and college research programs to get as much out of her SAE program as possible. And he goes on to say, I am going to be totally impressed, and I believe he refers to you as a rock star. So there you go. You are a rock star of supervised agricultural experiences and the FFA. So I wish I could do an intro that good, Kayla, but I can't. So I've got to leave it to your FFA advisor. So that's great. A lot to live up to, but we'll get into that here in a second. So let's talk about you. Where are you coming to us from? Where are you at right now?
Right now I'm at my house, which is between Pulaski, where I went to high school, and Green Bay, Wisconsin.
Okay, Pulaski and Green Bay. And man, does that make you, I mean, just by birth, are you a Packers fan?
Yeah, pretty much. There's some times where I'm a little iffy, but I always go back to my roots.
Always back to the roots. Would it hurt you to know that I'm a 49ers fan?
Ooh. I mean, everybody's got their team, so I can't discriminate at all.
Well, you know, after that big NFC championship matchup last year, I thought maybe that might be a point of contention, but you never know. You never know. Oh, well, everything's changed. Football's different this year. No stands in the stadium. It's just a weird year.
Yeah, definitely.
Absolutely. Now, are you, your home, is it on a farm? Is it in a town? Is it in the middle of those two? Something kind of in between? What is it like?
It's kind of an in-between mixture. I'm not in a town at all, but I'm not on a farm. I'm pretty much surrounded by woods and a couple other houses. So it's a weird mixture of the two.
I like the sounds of that, though. Out away from town, surrounded by woods. I bet the snowfall, well, you're by Green Bay. The snow falls, right?
Yes.
Definitely. Okay. Very good. How long have you been part of the FFA?
I joined my 6th grade year, but you can only be a chapter member at that point because some middle schools don't have 6th grade. So chapter member, 6th grade year, national and state member, 7th grade year.
Okay. National and state member. What brought you in? Why did you want to join the FFA, and especially that early?
Well, I always heard good things about it from my mom. She was really involved in FFA when she was young. She actually grew up on a farm, so she's the farm kid in this FFA experience. But she just talked so highly about it and all the leadership experiences it had, and I just had to try it out, and I've been doing it ever since.
Okay, yeah, I'll say that's a long stretch. That's as long as any stretch of any student I've ever interviewed. So it obviously worked out, and it's been something that's been fulfilling you and helping you. We'll kind of loop back around to that. And so you wound up as chapter president of your chapter. Was that last year, your senior year in high school?
Yes, it was.
Okay. Now, did you serve as an officer for multiple years, or was that the 1 year?
I was an officer for 3 years. So my sophomore year, I was the historian. So I took pictures and I made the scrapbook at the end of the year. And then my junior year, I was the parliamentarian. So I helped with running meetings when the president didn't really know exactly what to do.
Okay. Yeah, that would be me. If I got elected to president, I'd be like, what do I do? Somebody? Anybody? Okay, very good. And so that has obviously been going very well. And then now you are studying at the University of Wisconsin at Stevens Point. Where is Stevens Point in relation to where you live?
It is exactly 2 hours west, and it's right in the middle of the state. So if I want to go anywhere, I basically got to drive 2 hours.
Okay. So you're 2 hours from everywhere.
Basically, yeah.
Okay, very good. And what are you studying there?
I am actually double majoring in fisheries and aquatic science as well as water resources.
Okay. And I know that relates back to your supervised agricultural experience. So we're gonna jump back to that here in a minute. Let's do this. I always love to acknowledge our FFA advisors. Who have those folks been for you?
So my middle school advisor was Mr. Erdman, and he was the one who actually wrote that introduction, that very sweet introduction. He was the one who actually kept me involved in FFA because he always inspired all the younger kids to keep going and to find who they could be, and they could become amazing people. And then I have 2 high school advisors, Caleb Santee and Cedric Pettis, and they have both been a very big part of my FFA journey too. They both helped me in a lot of competitions I was in and always encouraged me to keep finding new experiences.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for acknowledging them and giving us a little bit of the backstory on them. Really appreciate you doing that. Let's talk about your supervised ag experience. So give us, to start, I guess, give us the technical title of what it was in high school.
So I actually had 3 SAE projects that went into like 3 different proficiencies. So one of them was agri-science research integrated systems. Another one was environmental systems and natural resources, or environmental services and natural resources. And then the last one, which I got the highest reward out of, was wildlife production and management.
Okay. And when you say the highest reward, do you mean intrinsic reward? Do you mean actual accolades and things like that? What are you speaking of when you say that?
I mean everything when I refer to that one, because that one was something I could involve my 2 other SAEs in just because of how it all worked out. And I actually won the National Wildlife Production and Management Proficiency 2 years ago now, I think.
Wow. Awesome. Man, a national proficiency win.
Sure.
That's a big deal. Congratulations. That's a heck of an accomplishment.
Definitely.
Yeah. Well, good for you. That's fantastic. Okay. So Mr. Erdman's right. You're a rock star. You got all this stuff going on, all these accolades. Now, he talked about the fact that you've always wanted to be involved in the fisheries industry. Did he have that right?
Yes, he does have that exactly correct.
He has that exactly correct. Okay. How did this happen? I mean, is this something that you grew up around? Was there some sort of an external stimulus that got you passionate about this? How did this work out?
So I actually grew up with a cabin along the lakeshore in a northern Wisconsin lake.
Okay.
And I didn't realize how big of an impact that had on me until a fisheries biologist up there actually wanted to introduce muskie to the lake. And I got all nervous about it, and I'm like, this can't happen. You know, I don't want it to ruin the lake ecosystem. And so as an 8th grader at that point, I wrote an argumentative paper on why the biologist shouldn't stock that fish.
Mm-hmm.
And I gave it to him at a public hearing he had. And he read the paper over and gave me very helpful edits back, and actually was using scientific terms that I had no clue about, but obviously he did as a fisheries biologist.
Okay.
And he said, I can see the passion that you have in this field from the paper. And after that, he offered me a job shadowing position, and that's where everything started.
Okay. So it was his contention that muskie should be added to that lake.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So first question, he read your paper. Did he still put him in?
No, he did not. The public hearing did not go the way he wanted to.
Really? Interesting. Yes. Interesting. Now,
the muskie were not stocked. Yep.
The muskie were not stocked. Now, I want to come back to this fish because you talk about scientific terms that you didn't know. Up there in like Wisconsin and Minnesota, you guys have fish terms I don't know. Like muskie, I know it's a fish, but that's about where it stops. So we'll come back to that here in a second. But I got to ask you about this. So as an 8th grader, it's one thing to disagree with somebody. It's one thing to stand up to them and say, hey, I disagree with you and I think you're wrong and here's why. But as an 8th grader who hasn't even started high school, to go up against a professionally paid, government-employed fisheries biologist with all these advanced degrees, all this experience, and to have to have the grit, to have the nerve to stand up and say, no, you're wrong. You hold multiple degrees and have this professional position. You're wrong, and here's why. Where does that come from? That is a special character trait.
Yeah, I honestly really don't know where that came from. It's just when the topic came up, I got very defensive over the lake environment because I grew up around it and I didn't want anything bad to happen to it at all. And, I spent weeks researching reasons why muskie were bad, and it just I honestly don't know where it came from.
Yeah, it's really interesting. I mean, as an 8th grader, what makes you think that this, I don't want to put in air quotes, I know he's an expert. What makes you think this expert's wrong?
Well, at that point in time and at that age, I noticed that he was only at that job for a couple years.
Okay.
And I also did not know at this time that he had lots of data from years prior, from before he was the biologist for that area.
Okay.
So in my mind, I was going through, okay, this guy has been here only 2, 4, 5 years. I can't exactly remember. And he's trying to change this whole lake ecosystem. And he just got here. He hasn't been here for years. He hasn't seen the lake grow for the past 100 like my family has if they've been up there. So that was kind of my whole thinking. But now that I'm older, I obviously, know they have the data. They have it from years prior. So.
Okay. And how does an 8th grader even find out that they're going to stock muskie in a lake?
Well, my parents at that time were actually very involved in the lake association up by my cabin.
Okay.
And they were talking about it, and that's how I found out about that.
Okay, so that's how you found out. And then there's got to be something special inside of you for you to go, well, I'm going to research this. The next 2 weeks, I'm devoting myself to muskie in the lake. So I'm picturing this. I'm assuming that your parents, as this discussion was happening, were not in favor of it. And then you kind of took that ball and you ran with it. Is that an accurate assessment?
Yeah. And at that time, just when you think about muskie, and a lot of people up at my cabin thought about muskie, they thought about the predation that they cause. And they were bringing up like, okay, if my little dog goes swimming, it could get eaten by a large muskie. I mean, that's not really, doesn't happen a lot, but that's what a lot of people were saying. And so hearing all of this, I'm like, okay, I have to find out. I have to say, why this can't happen.
Okay. And what were the reasons they wanted to put him in?
He wanted to put them in because he felt that the lake had a great habitat for the muskie and that they would thrive. Northern pike are actually a cousin to muskellunge. So they were in the lake and they were doing all right. So he thought muskie would also do good. And those large predatory fish also stimulate the other fish, the prey fish that they eat. And that stress actually helps them grow bigger. So in his mind, he was seeing, okay, great habitat. They will most likely thrive and be naturally reproducing maybe at some point. and they'll also help the rest of the fishery.
Okay. So, I mean, those all sound like great reasons to a guy sitting in Idaho. So now, what were the reasons that you came up with where you went, no, this is a bad idea?
Well, at that point in time, he didn't say exactly why he wanted to. He just announced that he wanted to, and the public hearing was later where he expressed all of that, and that was where I gave him the paper. But some of the points that I brought up was that they are not a native fish to the lake ecosystem.
Mm-hmm.
So if they're not a native fish, why would you want to bring them in? And that is actually still a very big topic going on with fisheries professionals now, even because sometimes it ruins the ecosystem rather than help it thrive. Okay. And you can never know until it happens. So one of my points was that. Another point was how they could not thrive because some of the northern pike populations in the lake weren't exactly doing the greatest at points. And because they are such a close fish, they are practically cousins, they might not have thrived. And why put so much money into it just to have it fail?
Okay.
And another reason, the last big one that I can remember from that paper, is it might mess up the food web. And it actually might destroy the food web rather than make it better for like the prey fish, make them bigger. It might actually decimate their numbers. Okay.
So you're saying that he's got a lot of ideas that sound great in theory, but hold on, what about these other unknowns, and what about the fact that it could go the complete 180-degree opposite of what you're saying?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting. And you guys won. Your side, I should say, won. They rescinded that and didn't do it. They didn't go forward with it.
Yep. At the public hearing he held, there was only one person that was in favor for it, so it did not go through.
And then this gentleman who you opposed and wrote this paper to dispute, then he kind of mentored you, is that correct?
Yes. He read the paper and obviously saw the passion I had that I honestly didn't even realize I had until he told me.
Yeah.
Because he called me the next day and left a voicemail, and he's like, I can see the passion. Do you want to job shadow me and see what a fisheries biologist is all about? Mm-hmm. Because some of the things I did say in the paper were not very scientific. They were just an 8th grader ranting a little bit. So he wanted to show me more of the actual ropes of the job and to get me actually seeing what it is he was trying to do.
Okay. That's very interesting. It makes me think of my very first semester of college ever. I was at a junior college and I took a physical geography course, and I disagreed with about everything that the professor said. And for my big final paper, I worked hard, like you, like about 2 weeks, just a full-on research, writing, and disputing all the points he'd brought up that I disagreed with. And even though I disagreed with everything he said in class, he gave me an A on that paper. And I think I got an A in the class as well. And it's a rare find to find somebody like that who is passionate about what they believe. They think they've done it right. You stand up and say, no, you're wrong, and I disagree with you. And then they take you under their wing and say, I like what you got going on. Let me help you to, I guess, further your interest in this. You just, it's interesting because I have the benefit of doing this show and interviewing so many students and so many people and hearing all these different stories and getting this insight into how life just works. And you never know when, where opportunity is going to come from or when it's going to come. You wouldn't think as an 8th grader who's disputing something like this, that the person that you disputed with would do anything more than say, nice paper, kid, or nice try, kid, or whatever, let alone take you on and introduce you into a whole career field and then give you the chance to grow in that. I'm sure he's probably a reference or something like that for you at this point in time. You just never know where opportunity is going to come from.
Exactly.
So I guess you got to be bold, right?
Exactly. Yes.
Okay. So that's how this all got started. That is a great story. Now, where have you taken it since then? We know about the Proficiency Award. Tell us what the SAEs have looked like, I guess, in scope and in practice over the last 4 years, 5 years.
So it started obviously with the fisheries biologist. at least for the wildlife portion of my SAE. And it slowly grew from there. So he actually, I shadowed him multiple times, and he actually let me go off alone with DNR equipment to create a contour map of the lake where my cabin is at, which is a 2,000 acre lake.
Wow.
So he let me do that by myself with state-owned equipment.
Okay.
So that actually went into my environmental SAE, which helped a lot there.
Mm-hmm.
And he also got me into my agri-science proficiency, because later in that job mentorship, I asked him, okay, I want to do agri-science. Do you have a possible question that I could help solve? And he mentioned one of the topics that I ended up doing, and he really got me into the agri-science portion of fisheries and the scientific part of it. So from there, it kind of blew up. Every year since, I have done a research project relating to fisheries or water resources, and I have kept gaining fisheries experience with him, along with 2 other fisheries biologists. And I have kept growing my environmental proficiency slowly by doing water quality, that contour map, phytoplankton research. And it all kind of interwove together so they could go together in multiple aspects.
Mm-hmm.
And through all of that experience, I was actually able to gain an internship with the University of Wisconsin Green Bay Aquatic Ecology and Fisheries Lab. And so that was 2 summers ago that first internship happened. And through them, I was able to put everything that I have been learning in my SAEs all together. It involved scientific research, environmental services and systems, and involved the fisheries aspect that I have been working on since 8th grade.
Wow, man. So, and you're still on this career path. This is what you're studying in college, and this is where you're heading with your future career.
Yes.
That is amazing. There's not a whole lot of people that you're ever going to talk to that say I started my career in the 8th grade.
Mm-hmm.
That's really amazing. So when you're all done with college, then, well, I say when you're all done, I mean, you're so research based. Do you plan on being done when you get a bachelor's degree, or do you plan on continuing on to an advanced degree?
I am definitely planning on getting a master's degree at some point after my bachelor's degree. It is because I love the science aspect of it, but also in Wisconsin, to actually become a biologist, you do have to have that master's degree unless you want to work an LTE position for years on end until you build up enough experience to gain that position. But even if I didn't need to, I still would go on to that master's, just because I do like the scientific aspect of it all, especially considering my 2 internships that I had the past 2 summers. And actually, the last internship I had this past summer, I was a Hutton scholar with the AFS, American Fisheries Society, and that really helped make sure that I was going into the scientific field somewhat in the fisheries field.
Okay. What is a Hutton scholar?
So a Hutton scholar is a student that is selected by the American Fisheries Society to be part of their junior fisheries biologist Hutton program. And with that, the student that is, or the couple students that are selected, there's like 200 to 300 applicants per year, but only 20 to 30 of them get chosen. And actually this past summer was only 11 due to COVID.
Okay.
But what happens is those students are selected and paired with a mentor in their general area. And that mentor allows them to gain experiences in any type of fishery, along with like the scientific side of it as well.
Wow. Well, good for you. Another incredible accomplishment, obviously. That's great.
Yeah, thank you.
You bet. Well, so what position do you see yourself having when you're all done with school, when you're getting out, you're getting to work? Are you wanting to go to work for the Wisconsin Department of Natural Resources? Do you have something else in mind?
Well, I am still debating that. For the longest of times, I have been very dead set on becoming a fisheries biologist somewhere in the Midwest. But now that I'm in college and I'm actually taking some courses, I'm learning of many more opportunities that I can take in different pathways in the same field, like genetics or population dynamics, focusing on streams, focusing on trout. So as of right now, I'm still going for that fisheries biologist in the Midwest, hopefully. But that may change in the future the more I get to learn about my majors.
Okay. Well, we'll let you do that. You know, as you do internships and you learn about stuff, it's okay. You can change plans. That's really, really cool, Kayla. That's a wonderful story. And we'll have to do this interview again in the future after you've held a public meeting and some 8th graders come up to you and handed you a paper and told you that you're all wet, that you don't know what you're talking about. That would be pretty funny. This is awesome. Well, I want to get your perspective. I know there's going to be other FFA students, younger students than you, listening to this, and they're going to be wondering, how was she so bold? How do I summon the courage if I believe in something and I think it's wrong, no matter the discrepancy in power, the discrepancy in education and age? How do I become so bold to go after that and to state my case? What would you tell them?
Well, my best advice for that would be to stop worrying about that power struggle or that age difference or that knowledge difference and just go after what you believe in. Always stand up for what you believe in, even if it may be wrong, because if you get your opinion out there, others know and may be able to help you better understand. So even if it is a scary experience or a scary thing to think about, try to push that back and get out there, because it could be something that could change your life for the better.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a great answer. Great answer. You just never know what's going to stimulate that opportunity. Well, one last question. I said that was my last question, but I got another one. So your future in the FFA, are you going to be pursuing an American degree, any more proficiency awards, any other accolades to the FFA, anything like that?
I am definitely going to go for my American degree at some point. I don't think I yet have the requirements to do it this year, but hopefully next year. But I am doing another proficiency application this year. Okay. The only one that I can do left is my agri-science research integrated systems. That's the only one I haven't won at the state level yet. But other than that, I think that's my FFA journey.
Awesome. Well, this has been a lot of fun, and great to see the note from Mr. Erdman and to hear the entire story. Kayla, thank you so much for coming on and sharing this with us today.
Yeah, and thank you for having me. It was a blast.
Well, thank you so much for being here, everybody. Thank you to Kayla Reed for coming on the Off-Farm Income Podcast today. And hey, everybody, please click that subscribe button and subscribe to our YouTube channel right here. And, of course, you can find us on social media as well at Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn. We hope you will join us over there as well. Everyone, as always, enjoy your journey to the ultimate lifestyle business, agriculture.